there, it's Debbie from Haven Inspired. Thank you so much for taking the time to drop by our channel today. If this is your first time, again, thank you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification button because I do all videos on self-care, self-help, so make sure to do that. Today we're going to be jumping into overcoming negative thoughts, which we kind of came out of that when we talked last week about conquering self-doubt. I wanted to dive into that a little bit more. So I do have 5 ways that can help with overcoming your negative thoughts. I'm excited to get started, so stay tuned. Okay, y'all, so let's dive in. 5 tips that I have to help with combating and overcoming negative thoughts. It's definitely something that I need to work on too. So as I'm preaching to you, I'm going to be preaching to myself. We're going to learn and go through this together. I got y'all. Okay, so number 1 is listen intently to your thoughts. Again, listen intently to your thoughts. I know when it comes to like your day-to-day, like you don't even like really realize the things that you're thinking. So it just really starts with being aware of what you're thinking about and when those negative thoughts come across your mind. The most important relationship that you're ever going to have with anyone is the relationship that you have with yourself. So be intentional in monitoring your thoughts and really taking heed as to what's coming into your mind. Be aware of what you are thinking, the contents of it, and how it arises and how it affects you. Okay? And then also too, just remember that negative thoughts will come. So don't beat yourself up about it. Like we already know that it's going to come. So just learn in this process to treat yourself with compassion, patience, of course, and then just the respect that you would give to any other person. Because I feel like we respect the people that are around us more than we even respect ourselves. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Okay, so number 2 is to keep a thought record. I can't say it enough, and you probably are like tired of me saying it over and over and over again, but journaling is definitely a way to help you keep record of the thoughts that you're actually having. And it's really so you can keep record of your negative thoughts, the situations that you're in when you think them. And then it gives you a way to kind of combat those things. So sometimes we don't even realize the things that we're saying to ourselves subconsciously every single day. So writing them down so that way you can see them visually can give you further insight. So the way that you do this, at the end of your day, you write down a situation that you had, whether it be just something at work or just something with friends or whatever. You just write down a situation that you had. You write down the mood that you had in that situation, your automatic negative thoughts that you had during that situation, and then if there are any thinking traps that are present, which I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes. So write down any evidence that supports that thought or any evidence that doesn't support that thought, and also any positive alternatives that you could have had in that moment. Okay, so number 3 is recognizing thinking traps, which is very, very important. This was something that I walked through with my life coach, and I was like, hey, like, I think I have all of these. But it really was helpful to kind of recognize and make sure that I recognize like when I'm going in that spiral of negative thinking. I think our minds just have a persistent nagging way of, making sure that we're thinking negatively, like it automatically just goes there. And it doesn't necessarily have to. So these thinking traps are good ways to just, one, bring these things to the forefront. So that way it's easy for you to recognize them, especially when you're going through your journaling and going through your thought record. It's going to be a lot easier for you to recognize them by knowing what these traps are. But yeah, let's dive in. So when it comes to the list of thinking traps, the first one is black and white thinking. And that's really just, either it's one way or the other way. There is no in between. There's no gray area when it comes to certain situations and certain people and certain things. So black and white thinking. The next one is probability overestimation, which is just basically overestimating like what can happen in any particular situation. So for example, you have something happen at work. Maybe you did something wrong, or maybe you just made a mistake, and your overestimation is like, oh my gosh, I'm like so fired. Like going to the extreme. Like, no, most likely, you're not going to get fired. It's more likely you're going to, maybe getting written up or get a talking to, or, whatever. But it's not necessarily always going to resort to the extreme of getting fired. So overestimation. Personalizing. So just assuming you are to blame of everything. This is me, like 100%. Like if someone's changed how they interact with me, or it could be anything. It could be just something small that I notice, because I'm a very detail oriented person. So it could be just something really small, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong. That's personalizing. I do that a lot. Okay, so the next area is mind reading, or fortune telling, which is just basically assuming that you know what the other person is thinking. So you have a friendship, and then all of a sudden one of your girlfriends just stopped talking to you. And you automatically assume that she's jealous of you, or you automatically assume that she hates you, or she doesn't like you, or she's talking about you. Those are the fortune tellers, or the mind reading, like, I think I know what you're thinking. Or the whole comments of, oh, she thinks she cute, or she thinks she this, or she thinks she better than me, or she thinks she, like, stop. Like that's the mind reading or the fortune telling. The it's not fair mentality. So that's just over focusing on whether things are just or right or fair. And that could be masked at first as just, being that person that wants to make sure that everything is right. I'm a bit that way too, like especially in the workplace. Like I'm the person that likes to stand up for people when they don't ask me to. Okay, so the next area is if only, and that's basically just over focusing on an imagined outcome. Yeah, I do that too. Which is just basically you have something in your mind as to like what's going to be a specific outcome, and you just played it out in detail, and that's absolutely 100% not what's happening. So yeah, if only. So emotional reasoning. So that's just basically basing your interpretation solely on your emotional reactions. And that's just acting out of emotion. And when it comes to those negative thoughts drive that consistently. The next one is thoughts are what they say they are. So that's just simply believing any thought that comes to mind as truth, which definitely could be detrimental when it comes to negative thoughts, because if you have an automatic negative thought, and we know like there's things that pop into mind right now, I'm sure, that as soon as you think that, it's like, oh crap, like yeah, that's true, like not necessarily. So the next one is filter thinking. So that's just choosing to see only the negative in certain situations. I like to call that like selective thinking, kind of like selective hearing, which is basically you may have positive thoughts, you may have negative thoughts, but you're only shifting your attention to the negative. So yeah, That is filter thinking. So the next area is catastrophizing, which is basically just assuming the worst in every scenario. Of course, when you have like several different situations, they can go with several different ways. You automatically go to the worst. It's kind of like the overestimation, but I feel like the overestimation is more so of it being a valid concern, but you just kind of overestimate it in a way. When it comes to this one, this is more so of any scenario, situation, you automatically go or assume the worst. So yeah, the next area or the last area as far as like when it comes to the thinking traps is should statements. So should statements are tricky because of the fact that when it comes to I should be doing something, a lot of times it is true. Like I shouldn't be eating this, or I should get up and work out, or I should be preparing myself for class, or I should be doing this, I should be doing that. So it's kind of hard at first to really decipher because of the fact that a lot of the I should statements are true. You're like, okay, well, I really should not be eating ice cream at 3:00 in the morning. Like that's like legit. But where it gets to be negative is when it starts to drive consistent negative thoughts. So it's kind of like a gateway negative thought. It's kind of like a gateway, like it's kind of like it can start the spiral. So it's more so of like just being aware of these rigid rules that you set on yourself as far as like what you should be doing, and not allowing that to spiral into negativity, and then letting it spiral into those other thinking traps. I'm definitely an I should person. It comes up a lot. I think a lot of us are. And I think a lot of it is more so of you just trying to get yourself going in whatever situation it is, whether it be losing weight or, whatever. It's a matter of being careful and not allowing it to spiral. So I should statements. Okay, so number 4, challenge your thoughts. Whenever you have a negative thought, stop and evaluate whether it's accurate. And you're not going to catch them all the time, but if it's something that you really notice, you're like, that was extremely negative, definitely just stop and evaluate it. Think about how you would respond to a friend if they were to say it out loud. You know what I mean? Like think about how you would respond to someone that you love, if they were to say it out loud, or, if they were to just vocalize their concerns to you. What would you tell them? Tell that to yourself. It's kind of like goes back to like taking your own advice. Like some people are just really good at giving advice, but not really good at taking it. So the way that you're going to check this is really just have a mental checklist. If you notice something that pops into your mind and you're like, dang, that really was negative, just really evaluate yourself and say, like, was that a fact? Is that true? Is that real? Is that a thinking trap? Challenge your negative thought. Make sure to be curious about the thought that came across your mind, and then also be curious about what triggered it. You know what I mean? Like just be really curious about your thoughts. Is there any validity behind it? Most of the time with negative thoughts, there isn't. And if there is, what is something constructive you can do behind it? What would be considered a negative thought that could be true is like, hey, like, man, like I put on some weight. Like that, like I legit added like 10 to 15 pounds. I did, like in quarantine, like for real, like that's a real thing. Like I gained like 10, 15 pounds. Like now you may say like, oh, like that was kind of negative. You're beautiful, which I am. I know. But on the other hand, it's like, there's something constructive that I can put behind that thought, right? Or if you fall short in something, you're like, dang, like I'm just really not good at this. That may be true, but put something constructive behind that thought. Don't just keep rotating that in your mind and not doing anything about it, you know? Yeah, and then also too, just make sure you just take small mental steps to work your way through it. It's not going to all happen overnight. It's definitely going to be something that you want to work on a consistent basis. And it's not necessarily something that you're going to master, but it is going to be something that's going to be progressive. You can get better at it. Okay. And then last but not least, when it comes to like challenging your thoughts, be bold and seek professional help. I've done all types of therapy. I've done, worked with a psychologist, a therapist, and also a life coach. But don't be afraid to, if you have the insurance for it, if you have the means to pay for it, definitely seek out professional help to help you along the way. There's nothing to be embarrassed about when it comes to working with someone in therapy or life coaching. One thing I'll have to say about seeking professional help is one, shop around. Not every therapist is for everybody. I know I shopped around a lot and I just came to the conclusion that it was really best for me to work with a therapist that was an African American female, simply because a lot of the other therapists didn't necessarily get didn't necessarily understand where I was coming from, and it caused more frustration than help. So definitely make sure you shop around for a therapist. Look for someone that's in commonality with you. For me, that just kind of helped me out. I did work with an African American male as well, and I kind of really wanted to work with a female. So definitely shop around. And when it comes to therapists, I feel like they deal more so of like your past, your childhood, why you react to things in a certain way. And they always kind of relate it back to like, how you were raised and things of that matter, which is all great. But I feel like the life coaching is more dealing with the present. So if you feel like you have more things that you just need to deal with the present, I would recommend a life coach versus a therapist. But yeah, that's just my little tidbits. Let me know in the comments, like how you manage like finding a therapist or finding a life coach. And I know that I've heard a lot of horror stories behind it. So definitely tell me those stories in the comments. Number 5, practice gratitude. And I know it's so simple. I know it's very simple. I get it. But it's really important to practice gratitude because of the fact that the more positivity you draw into your subconscious, the more it's going to put out. So if you're not putting any thankfulness, gratitude, mindfulness, any of those things into yourself, then it's going to keep spewing out negativity. Okay. So just the way to practice gratitude is really just to affirm the good things that are going on in your life. Even in those bad situations, trying to find the positive in those situations and really being intentional with that, especially when it comes to just situations with people. I always like when it comes to situations with people, I'm like, the positive out of that is like, I learned who that person is. I didn't keep going with that relationship and or that friendship or that even just with family members. Like I didn't keep going. Like I learned who that person is. I removed them from my life, even though it was just a horrible situation. I know now. You know what I mean? So finding the positive in all situations. And then also just acknowledging the roles that other people play in your life that you are thankful for. Thankful for my mom, thankful for my sisters, thankful for my friendships, the relationship that I'm in. All of those things I'm thankful for. So just really acknowledging those people, even doing things for them, calling them, checking in on them, just having that, gratitude for the people that are in your life that are positive. Those negative ones, we leave them on the wayside. We'll leave them by the bayou, okay? I don't know where bayou came from. I think I was watching Princess and the Frog. I don't know, but we'll leave them there. But yeah, so practicing gratitude definitely boosts your mood. It encourages optimism and positivity. And then feeling grateful just has a high impact on your levels of positivity and happiness. And then other ways of practicing gratitude, definitely with prayer and meditation. Of course, that's always a part of it. Journaling, of course. Some people like to have like gratitude journals, which I haven't done that, but I'm thinking I may start like a gratitude journal. That's a really good gauge of knowing whether you need to like actually start a gratitude journal. Like if it's really hard for you to find or see the positive or the good side in things, if you're in the filter thinking category, a gratitude journal would definitely be helpful. And honestly, this should be a daily practice. Having gratitude and being thankful for the things that you have in life, and feeding yourself with that positivity on a daily basis will definitely make a difference as far as like the type of thoughts that you're having. It's not going to happen overnight, like I said. It's definitely going to take some work, but I feel like these tips have helped me the most. So I definitely hope that it helps you guys. Okay, awesome. So that's my 5 tips as far as helping with overcoming negative thoughts. So 1, listen intently to your thoughts. 2, keep a thought record, very important. 3, recognizing thinking traps. Definitely let me know if you want more information on that. I'm thinking about doing another video, so let me know in the comments if you would like to see more on thinking traps. Number 4, challenging your thoughts. And number 5, practicing gratitude. I hope this was all helpful to you guys. Again, make sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button, go ahead and comment, do all of that. And I will check back in with you guys next week. Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day. Bye.